Welcome back to Think Tech. I'm Jay Fidel. Here it is Wednesday at 1 o'clock, and we are doing what we always do at Wednesday at 1 o'clock, which is Life in the Law. Today we're doing, behind the scenes at the Hawaii State Bar Association. And we have two main principals right here to discuss that. Pat Mauer Shimizu, she's the executive director of the Hawaii State Bar Association, and to her left, Greg Markham, who everybody knows is the president of the Hawaii State Bar Association. Welcome to the show, you guys.
Hello.
Hi, Jay. Nice to
We're
be here.
open and transparent at the HSBA.
Yeah, so when we say behind the scenes, we're only kidding.
Yes.
We recognize and acknowledge at the outset that it's all transparent.
Yes, that's the key words.
Well, let's talk about the Bar Association. It's an integrated bar association. Qu'est-ce que c'est que ça?
What it is we're called an integrated or mandatory or unified bar association. And what that means is every person who wants to practice law in the state of Hawaii has to belong to the Bar Association by the Supreme Court decree. It's not our rule, but it's the Supreme Court. So what that means is that the Supreme Court here, and we're very fortunate to have a very supportive Supreme Court, they regulate, and we're the only profession that is not regulated by the executive branch, by the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. We're regulated by the Chief Justice. So the Chief Justice is responsible for licensing, discipline, and all the things necessary. Because actually the HSBA is a trade profession. There's no secret about us. The carpenters have a trade association. We're a trade association. We serve our members. So we're very fortunate. Many states are under siege now because people don't believe they have to be regulated. But here in Hawaii, we have a strong Chief Justice, and I think he's done a really great job in regulating the profession. We like to think that we have very high standards, and we like to think we are held in somewhat of esteem in the public. But in case we're not, Greg and I are going to tell you all the things that our bar members do behind the scenes that the public doesn't realize that we do not only in our professional lives, but in our private lives.
Yeah, well, lawyers are, they're officers of the court by definition. They are public people. The public looks to them as a sort of the facilitators for the practice for the operation of the law. They represent, in a funny way, in the minds of the public, don't you think? They represent the law, the government. And so it's very important that, they be as transparent and clean as a pin. That's a pin. Yeah.
We strive to do so because, because we have the privilege of regulating ourselves as a trade profession. We do have an Office of Disciplinary Counsel, which falls under the Supreme Court. And amongst us, as members of the bar, because you're an attorney as well, we do have this self-policing attitude in which I find, after being 3.5 years at the Bar Association, the members themselves want to regulate the bar. The members themselves really frown upon people perhaps who didn't do anything that ethically falls within discipline, but nevertheless, it's still not acceptable. Like civility, not only being civil amongst ourselves during litigation, during mediation, during arbitration, but also civil in terms of client relationships, not only your clients, but civil to opposing counsel's clients, and also important, civil to staff.
Yes. Well, it strikes me that that the public judges every lawyer by the Bar Association. The Bar Association is the group. So if a lawyer does something bad, all lawyers are judged by that. You know how all the anti-lawyer jokes? That's not a joke. That's serious. I remember I was sitting in a restaurant once with my partner, Edmund, somebody came over, and the waiter came over. He said, I'd like to tell you a lawyer joke. And my partner, Edmund's a very serious guy. He said, we don't listen to lawyer jokes. Okay. The fact is that lawyer jokes are not good for the bar and for lawyers. We want them to like and respect us, and that's part of HSBA.
Yeah, that's part of our role. Again, we're the public face. Greg is the public face, as well as all the officers of the HSBA. They're the face of attorneys, not only the judges, not only the Supreme Court, but we represent the attorneys. And again, hopefully, we represent our attorneys very well because it's an honorable profession. People, again, lawyer jokes, and Justice Sabrina McKenna, she said, I don't listen to lawyer jokes. When people tell me about that, she goes into why lawyers are doing good in our everyday lives, our professional lives. We do a lot of things that people just don't think about, that we provide a lot of free services in our communities.
And lawyers are natural for public office. They're natural for leadership roles because they know the law that governs the community. So they do a lot of volunteer work. You find on every board, isn't it true? On every board, on every public organization, there are always lawyers there doing their work for free, for volunteer. Yeah. So, Pat, how'd you get into this business? This is not an easy job. You have responsibility not only to the trade association, the lawyer profession, but you also have responsibility to the public and to make an image for lawyers and interface with people who have questions or maybe complaints. So why are you doing this?
Well, for people who don't know, I've known Jay for decades now because I used to work for him. So a lot of my legal skills, which may be questionable at this point after 35 years, they're rusty, come from Jay. But all joking aside, I was one of those lawyers. I was a government attorney. I retired from the State House of Representatives after 30 years of service. So I've always been on the other side of the fence. And pardon me, Greg, I was always one of those, I'll pay my dues, I'll do my thing, leave me alone. But then I had a life-changing experience. I had a kidney transplant. So I said, I had a second chance at life. I'm in my late 50s. I can't go back to the practice of law because that would just be impossible. And then I didn't want to do advocacy or lobbying at the Capitol. Then I just happened to go to a wedding and I sat next to Lynn Flanagan, my predecessor, and I asked her, well, what's your job entail? And she started telling me all what she did at the Bar Association. I was thinking, I could do that. And I forgot about it. And then 5 weeks later, I called her. I said, is that position still open? And she said, yeah, the deadline is tomorrow.
Oh.
So I applied for the position. It's my second chance of life. I retired on a Friday. I carried my things that Friday afternoon, and I started working at the Bar Association since. And it's been very enjoyable. And we still do go to the Capitol because, for the Kona Courthouse, the board has authorized Greg and I to speak and advocate on behalf of that for the bar members because it's a benefit to all of the bar. So it's been very enjoyable. It's new networks and meeting old friends. And I'm not practicing law, but I still have to keep up with the practice of law because we have many sections. I'm responsible for continuing legal education as well as member benefits, the lawyer renewal registration process. So it's a lot of things dabbling, and I take a lot of the skill sets I got from the state capitol in smoothing the waters. So people, if there is a little confrontation or tension, we try to make everything amicable. So that's the politician in me. So I enjoy it, and I get to meet people I would have never gotten to meet Greg and the other members of the board. And it has been enjoyable. Keeps me active.
Great. Okay, we're going to talk more about the programs of the Bar Association, especially the Living Legend Lawyers Program that Greg created, which is really fabulous, right after this very short break. So we have Pat Shimizu at my left, and to her left, Greg Markham. They are respectively the Executive Director and the President of the Hawaii State Bar Association, here on Life in the Law, behind the scenes of HSBA. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Andrew Howard. I'm an astronomer at the Institute for Astronomy at the University of Hawaii up in Manoa. I'd like to tell you about the annual open house that we're having. This year it is on April 6th, 11 to 4 p.m. It's an all ages event, kids, grown-ups, even people in between. Everyone is welcome. We have a lot of really fun activities. You get to meet astronomers, look at yourself in an infrared camera, play with Legos, make robots, look at videos. You can even make a some of the kids like to make comets out of gravel and snow. Even adults like to do that too. You'll be able to look at the sun with a solar camera safely. It's really a great activity. We do this every year in April, and I hope to see you this year. Thanks.
Inspired by an ancient culture, classical Chinese dance, vigorous physicality, timeless stories, 5,000 years of Chinese music and dance, Shen Yun presents authentic Chinese culture. Coming to Blaisdell Concert Hall, May 8th and 9th. Tickets at shenyun.com or call 808-792-3919.
Okay, we're back, we're live, and we're not taking the Fifth Amendment at any time during this show. Fair? Okay. Patricia Mao Shimizu at my left and Greg Markham at her left. In Life and the Law, behind the scenes of HSBA. So, Greg, you're the president of the Bar Association. I mean, this is a very coveted office, high prestige for sure. And look at you, you're still a young man. Look at the vitality, look.
I'm not so sure about coveted, Jay. As far as I can tell, the best thing to be is a former bar president.
So, why did you decide to do that, and how did you do it?
Well, the HSBA always likes to put up a couple of candidates. They'd like to have competitive elections. So I threw my name in the hat with another very qualified attorney, and who would have been an excellent bar president. And we had a little détente. We decided, look, let's really not do much in terms of campaigning. Whoever wins will be fine.
Civility.
Civility to the
Civil
max.
campaign.
So unlike Texas, I've gotten to know the Texas bar president, Trey Apfel, where they've got 97,000 members and it's a statewide campaign, where his wife would drop him off at a high-rise building in Dallas, drive around the block while he hit every floor on the way down, pick him up, move to the next one, then on to Amarillo,
wow.
San Antonio, Houston, Galveston, Lubbock, you name it.
Lucky we live Hawaii.
Yes, this was, hey, let's just see who wins. We're not going to, try to.
Good move.
Yeah.
No letters of campaign went out in this
Nice,
section.
good.
That's
No.
the first time.
No letters, no postcards, no Christmas cards.
No hit pieces.
Right. Nobody went on Think Tank even to campaign.
If only we had known. Anyway, so you won, and then you slipped into office. But before you did, or actually when you were the president-elect, I remember you came up with this fantastic idea about living legend wars, and I really want to spend some time on that because it's big heart, and big heart is so much in our community, in our world.
Thank you, Jay. The way we work at HSBA, we actually have a 3-year commitment. So when you're elected to be a future president, you serve as vice president, then president-elect, and then president. So we do have a 3-year commitment. And sometime during that vice president year or waiting to be president-elect, I thought of this idea, and it probably came to me because I'm watching our World War II veterans age and frankly,
The greatest generation at all.
ever. And many of our members, 3-digit members, those with the 3-digit bar numbers, were part of that generation. A few of them are still alive, and we were fortunate to have 3 of them here.
Talk about the 3-digit concept because people may not know.
Absolutely. So with the idea that oral history of our bar would be a good thing, and a good place to start would be with our oldest members, the members that took us from territorial status to statehood. I thought, and then the board agreed, to their credit, that it would be a good idea to record their memories, their experiences, their careers for future legal generations. The idea is an old one. It goes back to the Civil War, really, and Ken Burns' documentary and the filming of the 50th anniversary at Gettysburg of the veterans that served there. Maurice Sandos wrote a book a long, long time ago about Crazy Horse. It was entitled Crazy Horse. This was a Sioux warrior never interviewed, never photographed, never talked to that I know of by, Paleface, who was, the leader of one of the greatest and most written battles on the High Plains at the Little Bighorn. In the 1920s, she interviewed warriors that fought in that battle. And keep in mind, there was only one side of that story to tell because the U.S. Army side was silent. They were all killed. But because they had no fear of prosecution in the 1920s and 30s, the lawyers that participated talked to her. And from that, she was able to write the book of Crazy Horse, the war chief of the Ogallala. And I thought, hey, let's get our crazy horses on video and see what we can find out about them before we can't.
You heard it here on Think Tech. Okay, so now this is a very interesting group because they were here, they were practicing, most of them at statehood, and in the 60s, and they had such stories to tell about the building of the state and the, what do you say, the refinement of the way law was practiced from early days. And they're actually only the cap of it, because the people who were there at the time of the Organic Act and the takeover and all that, they're gone. And we really have no good information about what it was like to practice law in those days.
Yeah, the only thing you can do is look at decisions from that era and try to figure out what their mind frame was and what they were trying to argue.
Yeah, but your idea here was we still have these guys.
You still have it. It's like interviewing the founding fathers. Wouldn't it be nice if George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams, Alexander Hamilton, Madison, and Monroe were on Think Tech?
Yeah.
We could have asked them a lot of pretty interesting questions.
Great names, and they a lot of them were in 442 and 100th Battalion.
Oh yes, we had a show, Jay, you'll remember very vividly, where we had 3-digit lawyers with other 3-digit important numbers attached to them, the 442, and served in Europe and the Pacific Theater. And we started with a little bit of that, and then we moved into their legal careers, which was, because it's a show about lawyers, we wanted to cover. But it's hard not to set the context by asking them, as we did, what were they doing on VE Day, for instance, and VJ Day? Anywhere from playing cards to processing German prisoners to getting ready to invade mainland Japan. So it was a very interesting show.
Yeah. Well, they're a tremendous group. They're tremendously interesting people, and they're all symbolic in the history of Hawaii, because I mentioned before that lawyers are the leaders of the community. That's the way it works. And these guys were having huge effect, casting long shadows over the way Hawaii developed over the past about 50, 60 years.
Yes.
And you brought that out, and we have it. We're not finished yet. We're about half done in the series, but we are developing this incredible library. It's like the Steven Spielberg Showa library of movies that can be played. They are on YouTube right now. They can be seen. And okay, so what kind of response have you had from the members of the Bar Association?
Well, it's been extremely positive and very uplifting. We even had our civics section dedicate a whole program to Patsy Mink, bar number 337, when she won the Medal of Freedom Award at the White House. So that was very, very heartfelt, and very, we really appreciated that reaching out and touching our program with her bar number. She's an example of somebody that we missed. It would have been nice if we'd have had her. Yeah. And our senator, Daniel Inouye. Yeah. And a few others that have passed during the filming of our program. Yeah. Frankly, one, in fact, Sonia Faust, who was ready on a Friday to do our program, and by Tuesday, she had passed away.
It all goes to show, and it's something I think you saw clearly at the time you conceived of this, is that you got to do it before it's too late.
Exactly.
This is history in the making right now.
That's right. Yeah.
But among our members, I'm getting positive response from other 3-digit members who are not featured on the program, but we put on continuing legal education, and we gave one of the badges to one of the members, and he goes, "Pat, where's my 3 digits? I'm a 3-digit." So there is a pride among the 3 digits now that the bar is recognizing that they are important. We're just not putting them on the side. And it's very common for when they came in for renewal registration, I'm a 3-digit. And they're very proud to say that. Previously, people wouldn't say that. But because of Greg, the whole list of them are very proud, and they're very happy that we're doing this, even if they're not featured.
Yeah, and as the word's gotten out, people have come forward and said, I'd like to be on that. I'm a 3-digit lawyer, so that's been really nice too.
But you can't possibly include them all.
Can't include them all. Wish we could.
Yeah, well,
wish we could.
Extend the program.
There's Jay plugging it.
Yeah, oh, that's good.
So now, one of the things that happened, and we discovered this. I mean, we discovered the format of it. We discovered the way to do it, and it's going well. I would say from a production quality point of view and a procedural point of view to get them in here and have the conversations. And for this, we needed to have hosts. Okay, and you started out a little tentative by being the host.
Naturally.
Even the president of the Bar Association sometimes can be tentative.
And he's a litigator.
A litigator, no less. But all that changed almost immediately, and you are a fabulous host. In fact, you should come back and do hosting of all kinds of other things, Greg.
Well, I don't know. I appreciate those kind words. It's a little intimidating to be in front of the bright lights and on live television, but getting a little more used to it. We're sharing this responsibility of hosting, as you know, with other bar presidents,
Yes,
which
of
I
course.
think has been really nice.
Yeah.
Craig Wagnall, Calvin Young, and Sherry Broder have also done it. So
Yeah.
it's been nice to re-involve them as well.
Well, there's an art to it. I mean, you have people who haven't been before the lights themselves, people who may not, want to talk about their early times. Maybe sometimes practicing law is not fun. Believe it or not. And you have to say things and do things to draw them out. And we've gotten to that. I mean, you and the other hosts have developed an ability to draw them out, and it makes it so much more valuable and more personal and more touching when that happens.
I think you're right. I think it does make it valuable and more touching to hear their personal stories, and sometimes in the case of Dan, in the case of the Case brothers, Dan and
I remember
Jim,
that
they
show.
talked for the first time ever, and it was interesting that it was on television, about their silent agreement to not compete between their two large law firms as brothers. They'd never talked about it before, even to each other, and they talked about it for the first time on that show. So, and you could tell it was a very touching and emotional subject for both of them.
Well, I mean, the idea was great, and the execution's really good. And it strikes me that it's a way that Hawaii distinguishes itself from other places. I mean, for example, the civil election, instead of running up and down the condominium with, for campaigning in Texas. We have a different way of doing things, and we have to retain that. We have to treasure that, and what you're doing with this program does exactly that. And it's not just this year. It's a forever thing. So don't stop.
That's exciting that it is archived, and it'll be there for generations to come. That's exciting for us.
And after this generation, there'll be other generations that need to be honored in the same way.
There is one lawyer who we're going to call Mr. Irrelevant for purposes of this program, and that would be, of course, the lawyer with bar number 1000.
Right on the fence.
Yeah, and one digit lower, and he's in the middle of it, and one digit higher, and he's for now, not forgotten. Ken Robbins is very much.
Oh, Ken Robbins.
Yeah,
is it?
he's
Okay.
Mr. Irrelevant, and from the NFL, the last person drafted gets the Mr. Irrelevant trophy. So Ken's been notified, and we've asked him to be at the bar dinner so that he can be recognized as Mr. Irrelevant.
Fair enough. We can continue to think of these great things, to sort of fet lawyers in Hawaii.
Yes.
And I think it's good for the Bar Association that this happens.
It is.
It's part of what we were talking about before, about making a good image for everybody. If we enjoy them and treasure them as, historic symbols and all that, then people out there will do the same. Okay, well, we're going to talk about more of the programs that you guys are doing right after this break. We're going to take another break. That's Patricia Mao Shimizu, the Executive Director of the Hawaii State Bar Association, and Greg Markham, the President of the Hawaii State Bar Association, here on Life in the Law, behind the scenes at HSBA. We'll be right back.
Aloha, I'm Kili'i Akina, President of the Grassroot Institute and host on Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the Think Tech Hawaii broadcast network. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Ehana Kako. Every week, we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to Think Tech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the Think Tech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're Ehana Kako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here with Pat Mao Shimizu and Greg Markham from the Hawaii State Bar Association here in Life in the Law, Wednesday, 1 to 2. And we're talking about behind the scenes at HSBA, except everything we've talked about so far is actually totally transparent. But continuing for a moment, these movies that we're making of the old timers, the three-digit guys and girls, they're going to be made into one larger movie and played at the annual Bar Association dinner. How's that going to happen?
Yes, well, the way it's going to happen is Carol Monlee's informed me we have over 20 hours of footage, and we'll probably have at least that or more by the time we're done. We're going to be condensing that into about a 25-minute documentary, if you will, of our 3D lawyers. They're going to be, specially invited for their former
they should
firms,
all be there, yeah.
their families, children, etc.
What a clever way to get them all to come down.
Absolutely, and we do want them to come, and we'll mention them, and they'll be featured. And it's on August 22nd. It's a Saturday at the Hawaii Convention Center, and those interested can purchase tickets for that event through the Hawaii State Bar Association office. If they just call the office, they'll be able to connect with that.
And the telephone number, just for the record.
537-1868.
Okay, and the website address?
Gee, you're embarrassing me, Jay.
HSBA?
HSBA.org.
.org. Okay.
Right.
All right.
And so we're not competing with any other events that we know of. The UH Sports hasn't started by that time, and it should be a nice, quiet Saturday, a good time for everybody to get down to the convention center on the edge of Waikiki, so they don't have to go into the mess. And we're really looking forward to it. It's our fundraiser, Jay. We fund programs through the Bar Foundation now through that dinner, and one of them, in particularly this year, is going to be the Courts in the Community program.
Yeah, let's talk about your programs. Courts in the Community, what is that?
Well, it's the brainchild of our Chief Justice, Mark Rechtenwald, and it's been a fabulous program. What he envisioned and what we put into place with the court, at the court's direction, with our support, is the courts go out into the community, literally to high school gymnasiums, Jay, or other suitable venues, and an oral argument, a real oral argument is done in front of 400 high school students with their teachers, and the bar members volunteer to go out into the school districts. We did one on the Big Island last year where they went out as far as Ka'u and South Point. I mean, way out in
I've
rural
heard
district.
about that. That was really famous.
Oh yeah, and they taught the students the issues in the case. They shared the briefs with them. They talked about protocol. I attended that on the west side of the Big Island. The students were, 400 plus high school students. You could have heard a pin drop in that gym, which was amazing to me. They were appropriately dressed, ties on for the boys, dresses and skirts for the girls, extremely well behaved. And then they were given the opportunity, they were afforded the opportunity of asking the court questions. They actually got up to the microphone and could basically ask the court, 5 justices, anything they wanted.
Did that happen in your high school training?
Absolutely not. It doesn't happen when we have oral argument as lawyers. It was just fantastic. Now, when the court couldn't answer the question because it was too directly on point with regard to the issues involved in the case, they declined, but all other questions were answered. They also had the opportunity to ask questions of the parties, the lawyers, the 2 lawyers arguing the case. Why did you choose this point, not that point? Why did you choose this point first and not last? Fantastic, and they were so well prepared that their questions were fantastic. Then there's a lunch afterwards. Bar members get to talk to the court, meet the court. The photographs are taken with the Supreme Court on the steps of the high school or wherever it is per class, and it's just a fantastic program. Going to the neighbor islands once a year now, and to a district here on Oahu.
Going to continue with that?
Going to continue with our support. Our funds for that program are starting to dwindle a little bit. So with this bar dinner, we're going to re-energize that fund. our money's going to go a large part to that program to get it revitalized and so that it can continue.
This is a great program. I tell you, my thinking is that, kids coming up these days, and it's not only in Hawaii, elsewhere too, they don't have any connection with the government. They don't
Because
get
there's no
drafted.
civics education or social studies requirements.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So by the time they're finished with school, they're already disaffected about government. How can you have a society that way? You've got to go out, you got to outreach, you got to talk to them, you got to bring them in, you got to make them understand how it works. And
Right.
this is one terrific way to do that.
Yeah, and they're really, their only exposure to the third branch, well, one of the three branches of government, that being the judiciary, is if they get a speeding ticket. And this is anything but that. I mean, this is practice of law at the highest level in the highest court. It's also our hope that, as you know, our demographic, Jay, everybody in the bar is our age. And we're concerned about our new members and new membership. We're hoping that maybe a few of these high school students might kind of enjoy what they see and want to be part of it.
Yeah.
Go to college and go to law school.
Yeah.
It's a little side selfish.
Very
benefit there.
important. You talk to them about that when you go on these trips?
Well, I haven't had an opportunity yet, but I certainly will.
You will, yeah. Okay, well, that's one really good program. You have other programs like Access to Justice. When Justice Rechtenwald was here, he sat in that chair. In that chair, he sat. And he talked about that at some length because he had covered that in his State of the Judiciary remarks to the legislature this year. But now you're involved in that program. HSBA
Right.
is involved in that program. Yeah?
There are three parties involved in the Access to Justice programs. We do have, on Oahu, we have two sites, one at the Honolulu District Court and one at the Kapolei Family Court. And on the neighbor islands, we have self-help centers. So what it is people who are self-represented litigants. These are the people who perhaps cannot afford attorneys. Maybe they can afford attorneys, but they just don't know what's going on. They need to know, what am I doing here? What is the next step? So we have volunteer attorneys who come in, who volunteer their time, maybe 2-3 times a week. We have these clinics on each of the sites, and they come in and they talk to people, and they form relationships, and they give them advice, not only as to how to maneuver. Sometimes they bring in their forms, and they ask people, how do you fill this out? What does this mean? And that's another one of the programs in which the internet access and other supplies, computer equipment, all of those things come from the net proceeds from the annual dinner. And I may add, for the courts in the community, the net proceeds from the annual dinner, and Greg's gonna designate a large portion of it, it goes to bus transportation. All the schools in a school complex are invited to attend, public, private, and charter.
That's what happened in the Big Island.
Yeah. So we don't want people to say that, oh, I'm way out in Kahu, I want to go, but I can't go. We pay for the bus transportation, and we pay for the lunches. Basic things we pay for. And then we also pay for 2 law students to go over to the neighbor islands to help prep. So getting back to the Access to Justice Room and self-help centers, it's a tremendous response. As a matter of fact, Hilo, they say almost every time they open their doors, there's at least 5 or 6 people standing out there waiting, because people do need to, they're intimidated by the courts, especially the self-represented litigants.
Yeah.
So there are 3 parties to this project: the judiciary, which donates the premises, the HSBA, which we do the office supplies and the internet access, and we supply the volunteers. And the third party to this is the Legal Aid Society of Hawaii. They're responsible for the training and the certification of the attorneys, because we make sure
Who act as the mentors. Yeah.
they go through actual training, because
Yeah.
we don't want to put people in a situation in which they're going to be talking off the top of their head. Every person who goes to Access to Justice Room or Self-Help Center, their volunteer attorney has taken at a minimum 2-3 hours of prep time, because perhaps they don't actually practice in those areas of the law.
What's the difference between being represented by Legal Aid Society and being part of the Access to Justice program?
The Legal Aid Society has income requirements. Because we're on the court premises, we don't ask people for income requirements. So anyone can come in. When we do the Honolulu District Court, you can get landlords as well as tenants being evicted.
right.
So, but we don't,
Poor landlords.
yeah, but we service all, because this is something in which all three parties, and the CJ himself has said, we have to try to demystify the court process, try to make it less intimidating, so at least when people go there, they feel like they had their day.
Yeah.
They had a shot at it.
It's a great program. Well, I'm very impressed about the Big Island aspect, your trip, and other neighbor islands, because I think to the extent, you know, you're talking about sort of geographical distance makes it even worse. You know, the separation, the feeling of not being involved. And when you go and you touch people on the neighbor islands, it has a huge effect. KLRK High School was part of the one.
It was.
Yeah.
This next one is going to be in April. It's going to be on the island of Kauai, and it's going to be at the Kauai Community College. So, and it's coming right up in about 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
So far, 475 juniors and seniors on Kauai have signed up to participate.
That's huge.
When they called in the number, I said, do they have that many juniors and seniors on Kauai? We were astounded by the number of people that came forward. The kids want
This
to
is really getting
participate.
traction, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is. We understand that Island School is across the parking lot, so they're not going to be getting bus transportation to the hearing, but everybody else on that island will be. So.
Yeah. Well, I commend you guys. I think it's great. And by the way, I was going to say, you love your work, don't you?
Yes.
I
I
know
love
that.
working
You
with
can tell.
attorneys.
You can tell.
I love working with Greg.
Oh. And Greg, you're giving up a lot of your practice time for this, aren't you?
Well, it's been fun though, Jay. I'm wondering what I'm going to be doing next year when I don't have 5 other things to be doing at the same time.
You won't know what to do with yourself.
I won't. I was walking over here with Pat saying, hey, you want to use me for something next year? I think I'll have a lot of free time.
A volunteer. Well, let's talk about the dynamics of the bar. You know, I was very touched. We had a show recently about the History Museum in the ground floor of the Judiciary Building. Well-staffed, well-organized, and important to show that, you know, our history different from every other history, really. But the bar, the practice of law, you guys, you're seeing it, and you appreciate it, obviously, in the 3-digit program. But where has it been going? Where is it going now? You are the stewards, at least this year. You're the stewards. Is it more fun to practice? Is it more civil now than it was, say, in 1970? Is it less civil? Is it different? Where are we going as a community of lawyers?
Well, it's a big question, Jay. And one of the big concerns that we have at the HSBA, I've already alluded to it, is the demographics. The baby boomers are American society at this point. We represent the majority of people in any given age group. And we're concerned about the number of young lawyers coming up. Law school enrollment is down nationwide, way down, including at our own law school. The number of applicants for the bar exam, way down. We purchased our space a number of years ago, and before we did it, we thought about, very deliberately, how many lawyers are going to be around in 20 years to pay the mortgage? And so, being the good stewards that I think our board is, we've decided to pay as much and as fast as we can, thinking that we may have half as many active attorneys in a few years as we do now. We don't know. It's hard to predict. Maybe law school numbers go back up. Maybe the jobs will be available. So that's one concern in the change. You're talking about the change. The change is out with the old and in with the new, and there's not a lot of new right now. So that's one change. The other change, of course, is when I started, even in the early 1980s, we still used IBM Selectric typewriters. Wang had just come out with a word processing, operation. It was just seems, and we were using carbon paper and long distance calls we had to log because they were so expensive. So the technology has changed the practice of law tremendously. Instead of spending a half a day at the county law library at the Supreme Court, as I did as a law clerk, you're online with our fast case, free to our members, researching on the computer at the push of a button. It's just super fast. You have to be talented enough to navigate through that and get in the right keywords and so forth, but the young lawyers can do it. Even taking the bar exam is different from writing in those blue books, your answers, to being on the computer and inputting them that way and then sending them to the right place. So there's a tremendous change. The number of lawyers, has increased, even though the young lawyers proportionally aren't as great a demographic, but still the numbers have increased in general. We're over 10,000 now We started with 3 digits, and now we're over 10,000. And with that, I think probably a little less personal contact and interaction has evolved, but still, our bar is very collegial. We all get along I think, very well. Knock on wood. Yes, another 9 months at least. We want to keep it that way.
Hold those arguments.
Yeah. So those are the kind of the main things. I think the demographics, the increased number, even though we're missing that one demographic, and it's not just in the law, by the way. Those 25 to 35-year-olds are just missing from the state. Because if they're in general, they're just not here, and for good reason. I think it's tough when your first house costs $750,000 to live in Hawaii.
This profession is not exempt
No.
from what's happening to other professions
That's
in
right.
the state.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think those are the main differences that I see.
Yeah. How much of that do you agree with, Pat?
The practice side, because I'm not a practitioner, but I see it from the membership side. The HSBA has to be all things to all people. So unfortunately, the middle group, you kind of get ignored a little bit because we do have a very active young lawyers division and a senior counsel division.
Yeah.
The young lawyers division, led by President Mariah Holden, they're very, very active. They're geared up. They just completed the mock trial competition, which is statewide. All schools can send in teams. Then we're gearing up for Law Week on May 2nd, on Saturday. They're going to have law clinics statewide, and that's our young lawyers. What we see from them is they want to network, although they're techies and, we're intimidated by them. They want face-to-face social networking because they want to network. So that's the young lawyers. Senior counsel division, led by our president, Ken Wong, very active because we have coffee hours for our seniors, senior division attorneys, which are 50 years and above. We have programs like tomorrow we'll be having one on Social Security. We have an expert coming in from Social Security, and she's going to be giving a coffee hour. And we've had one on medication. We've had, dementia training.
Well, my favorite, Pat chose the name of this seminar, dementia. What was it?
Dementia training.
Dementia training.
Specifically.
I got the notice
Because
on that.
people
Notice
said,
on that.
why that? And I said, it was supposed to be dementia capability, but if I put dementia training, it's going to catch people's eye.
Did it? Did.
Statewide, we drew 220 attorneys, live presentations, because what we found, it's an access to justice issue. We found that people coming in from the public, if they want an attorney and they've been diagnosed in the early stages of dementia or Alzheimer's, attorneys, they don't know how to handle them.
Yeah, it's hard to do that.
Because of ethical considerations. So we got a grant in partnership with the Executive Office on Aging in the state, and we brought in 2 speakers from the ABA. And again, we went statewide live with these 2 speakers with, our elder law projects for the local experts.
Yeah.
And, hopefully these attorneys who went for training, many of them said they went for family, but the others for their practices, hopefully this will not be an underserved population.
That's great. You're covering all the bases. This is really, the Bar Association is very active and very constructive, and as I said before, has a big heart. This is very nice for the community of lawyers and for the community in general. That's Patricia Mao Shimizu, the Executive Director of HSBA, and Greg Markham, the President of HSBA, now 3 months into his one-year term.
But who's counting?
But who's counting?
He's still smiling.
And we're at Life in the Law. We're talking behind the scenes at HSBA. I want to take a moment to thank Carol Munley, who set this show up. She sets all these Life in the Law shows up, as well as all the shows on the Living Legend Lawyers. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, gentlemen and ladies, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jay.
Aloha.
A pleasure.
Thanks.